Hi everyone, my name is John. Welcome back to my channel. I threatened in my last video where I talked about everything I read in 2024 that I was going to start posting reviews. Since I'm pretty behind on those, I've been doing historathon stuff and showing new books and not so much talking about individual books with the longer reviews that I usually do. So let me do a few of those and maybe catch up and make up some ground in February and March. I want to start off with a novel I actually read. I don't read a lot of fiction these days, but I wanted to pick this up because I was feeling in the mood for something a little bit lighter than normal. And this is what I chose. It is 84 Charing Crossroad by Helene Hanff, or Hanff. And I picked this up sort of not on the suggestion of Hannah at Hannah's Books, but because she had mentioned it. And she said that she reads it, I think it's every New Year's Day, every year. And knowing Hannah's taste in books, I was just curious, sort of knew the conceit of what it was all about going into it. But knowing that it was such a perennial thing for her made me even more interested to know what it was about. So I will be giving some plot points away. It's a very short book. You can probably read this in an hour. Most people can. But I will be talking about some of the things that happen. So if you're not a spoilers person, don't watch this until after you're finished. But 84 Charing Cross Road has sort of grown into a minor cult classic since it was first published, which was in 1970. It's got something like 14,000 reviews on Goodreads, and the last thing it needs is a 14,001st. But as you know, if you've been here for a while, I try to say a little bit of something about every single book that I read, so here goes. Helene Hanff was a screenwriter living in New York City with wide-ranging taste in books. And she sends off, this is not a character, this is actually the writer, the same woman who writes the book. She sends off a casual request about some antiquarian and out-of-print books to a London bookstore. And within a matter of weeks, she and the lead bookseller at that bookstore, called Marks and Company, the lead seller at which is a genial young guy named Frank Doyle, they have struck up a relationship that seems a little bit transactional. He sends her books, she sends him a check, basically. But it only seems like that at first, and then it grows into a genuine fondness and admiration for one another through books, but also about other things too. It starts off with Helene's first letter, which she writes on October 5th, 1949, and their correspondence lasts for 2 decades, to the end of the 60s. And her sort of gregariousness, her outgoing personality, her talkativeness just sort of shines on the page. She's a voracious reader. She's really independent. Just shines through in the letters. Just as much as Frank's gentleness and deference to her also come through in his replies. And before long, Helene's correspondence spills over to other employees at Marks and Company, and even their family members who don't work in the bookstores directly themselves. Everyone at the shop tells her how they would love to have her visit London and come to the bookshop. And of course, she returns the sentiments saying she would love to come sometime. For all the kindness and warmth that really overflows from the letters, there's one thing that really struck me as really bittersweet about the book. And it's that as time slowly goes on, the letters between Helene and everyone at Marx and Company grow more and more attenuated over time. It starts as this fast and furious series of letters placing and fulfilling orders on everything from the letters of Roger de Coverley, the fictional invention of Joseph Addison, to the Vulgate, to the Quiller-Couch edition of the Oxford Book of English Verse, a favorite of Helene's and Horace Rumpole alike. But as she gets to know everyone at Marx and Company as friends, she sends them care packages, often with generous amounts of food for them. This is still in some pretty straitened circumstances after the war, to get them through the holiday season. And after many years have passed, the letters, like I said, they sort of slow to a trickle. And sometimes it takes a year or more for one party to send the other party a message. And I've never really been one to look for messages or lessons in novels. But if Eating for Charing Cross Road has something to teach us, surely it's that we shouldn't let the fire of friendship and mutual interest die. It inevitably waxes and wanes over time, especially over a period of 20 years. But in a world where fewer and fewer people are reading for pleasure, and the death of letter writing is already basically a fait accompli, it was really poignant to see the book abruptly end with a letter announcing, here's the big spoiler in the book, announcing Frank's death from peritonitis just 3 days before Christmas of 1968. And to compound the sense of loss, Marx and Company was forced to close 2 years after that in 1970, the same year that Helene published the book. She finally visited London in the summer of 1971, a trip that she discusses in a later book called The Duchess of Bloomsbury Street. Read books, I think, is what we can take away from this. Talk about them with your friends who love them as much as you do, and keep in touch. Today, all that remains at what used to be Marx and Company is a pilaster that reads Charing Cross Road. The booksellers Marx and Company were on this site, which became renowned through the world by the book by Helene Hanff. That's all that's there. Of course, the bookstore is gone. And it could just as easily have read what Helene and Frank almost certainly knew to be the epigraph of Ian Forrester's Howard's End, which is only connect. It's a great message. And it's a really charming book. I can definitely see why Hannah reads this every single year. It gets, like I said, the year off to a good start, even though it does have its bittersweet aspects. 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff. I'll be back soon with another review.